Hi, welcome to Phoenix English. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about adjective clauses, but very specifically, adjective clauses with prepositions. Now, I know that this gives people a hard time. It's a little bit tricky. It's not really for beginners. But again, beginners can also figure out how to use these. Let's start with, what are prepositions? So, prepositions are these little directional words that are used to show some sort of relationship between things in a sentence. Okay? For example, of, in, about, at, on, for, to. We have lots and lots of prepositions in English. All of them have very specific functions. But what we're gonna look at specifically is how they are part of adjective clause or a relative clause, depending which way you want to call it. Let's look at an example sentence to start. The book, in which she discusses her long career, is a real eye-opener. Okay, what I'm doing here, I have my preposition and my relative conjunction that is showing basically an adjective clause, and it's going to be describing the book. Now, the reason I think that people have a bit of a hard time with this is they don't know, first of all, which preposition to use, and they don't understand what the relationship is when you're putting it at the beginning of a clause. So, the easiest way to understand this is to basically separate the sentences or the clauses into two separate sentences. The book is a real eye-opener. So you still have your independent clause. This is your independent clause. This is the actual sentence itself. And then you take your adjective clause and make it into another independent sentence. In it, in the book. So I still have the reference to the book. In the book, she discusses her long career. So now I have the two sentences separated. Now, the key to remember is that I still need to have in because I'm talking about what is in the book. Okay, that's the main idea. I'm talking about what is in the book, not about the book in terms of other context, in terms of other relationships. So, now all I want to do is I want to take this sentence, this independent clause, and turn it into an adjective clause to say something about the book. So, I must keep the preposition. If you have a preposition as part of a description, you must keep the preposition. And what do? You're going to replace the subject again, it, in this case, or in the book. And you're going to put a relative clause, which, in the book, she discusses her long career. The book is a real eye-opener. So, it's the exact same meaning, and I'm just putting the relative conjunction right next to the noun it's describing. And notice, I can do this with a non-defining adjective clause. I can also do it with a defining adjective clause, and we are going to look at that in a moment. Okay, that's the key. The most important thing to remember is where to put the preposition and which preposition you're going to use. So, if you're reading a sentence that uses a preposition with relative clause, just try to rearrange it so you understand what the function of the preposition is. Let's look at this sentence. When we talk about acting or actors, they have a role. They have a particular character that they're playing. The role that she is most remembered for was as Princess Leia. Okay, so we are talking about a specific actress, and she's very famous, but she's very famous for playing Princess Leia in Star Wars. Now, what can I recognize here? So, here is my relative clause, the role. I'm identifying which role. So she's remembered for the role. Now, if I want to convert this into a prepositional relative clause, I move for here. The role for. Now, one thing you need to remember about adjective clauses with prepositions, because prepositions must be followed by an object, okay? After a preposition, you're going to have an object. So in this case, you can only use which or whom. you can't use that. You can't use who. Okay? You have to use which or whom after the preposition because these are going to be the object of the preposition. So I have to take out that and I have to put which. The role for which she's most remembered is a Princess Leia. Okay? We are going to look at a few more examples just to make sure you understand. The candidate, about whom very little is known, appears to be the dark horse of the race. The dark horse means the one that nobody really expected to win. The candidate appears to be the dark horse. Very little is known about him. So first of all, what I did, very little is known about him. About him was at the end. I moved it to the beginning. Because remember, an adjective clause is going to come right after the noun that is describing or identifying. So if I put it, very little is known about him in a separate sentence, no problem. If I want to put it right next to the noun, whom is the candidate. About the candidate, very little is known. You can use it in active, you can use it in passive. Here, we're using it in passive, which is why there is no subject here. Next example. The top 10 salespeople. Now, I have 10 people. 5 of these 10 people broke sales records. Okay, so the top 10 salespeople, 5 of whom, 5 of them, 5 of the salespeople broke sales record. Here is the subject of the clause. Here, this is the verb. 5 of whom, this is not the subject. It's very important to remember that when you're using a preposition in the adjective clause, it's always going to be the object pronoun. Whom, which, not that, not who. Those are subjects. Another one. She went on air to share her story. Now, another thing. Just like we can put an adjective, a regular adjective clause in the middle of a sentence or at the end, you can still do that with a preposition. She went on air to share her story, the gist of which is that this and that happened. Okay, the gist means the basic idea. So, the gist of which is the story. Now, all I need to do is put a period here. She went on air, like radio, TV, whatever. She went on air to share her story. The gist of the story is that she was saved. Okay, the gist of which. Here is your subject. Gist is. The gist is. The gist of what? Of the story. Another thing to point out, here I have broke, past. Here I have future. You can mix the verb tenses as long as it makes sense. Just make sure you're using the correct preposition with whom or which. Okay, and that's basically all there is to it. It's actually very straightforward. It just, if you understand adjective clauses, relative clauses, then you can also understand relative clauses with prepositions. If you liked the video, give us a like, and if you really like it, please subscribe to my channel. See you soon.